So my presentation is on a restaurant simulation using Simio. The purpose, customers can be dissatisfied very quickly, which is a major concern within the service industry. So the customer is happy, the business is happy. Um, Customers can typically wait for a long time before they're actually seated and then further served. Especially within New York, I know many experiences a very nice restaurant, very trendy. Lots of people want to eat there, and the time from getting there to actually getting your food can be, in the order of over an hour. The longer wait, the more dissatisfied customers can be. So it reduces the likelihood of coming back. I know restaurants where I've had to wait a long time. I typically don't go back there often. Um, Lowers the purchases tips, which can happen if you're frustrated or service is bad. Um, you'll have impacts there, and then also your staff. So your staff is busy, customers are dissatisfied, tips go down, morale goes down. It sort of has a cascading effect. Some background. So there's really just two options for processing customer arrivals. You can seat customers on a first come, first served basis. That's walk-ins. That's going to be our status quo model. So as they arrive, you have the advantage of optimizing seat space. The queue can grow actually pretty large this method though, because people are seated as they arrive. Um, and then the other option is you see customers only based on the reservations that they made in advance. So, you arrive at a restaurant, you make a reservation. Yes, great. What is it? We'll seat you. No, we'll see if we can seat you, but it's unlikely. The problem with this, though, is if you do this reservation system, is you'll have no-shows and last-minute cancellations. People aren't able to come and see, and so you have an empty table and some lost revenue. So one thing, based on the research, it's shown that the average mean revenue per person in the text of restaurant revenue management, it was a per person per check, is higher for reservations compared to walk-in guests, and that kind of goes back to the situation before where a walk-in guest, has been waiting for a very long time, and you're actually going to see like a reduced tips and purchases. Etc. So one thing, there's no single perfect system, but what we're going to look at is the status quo model is arriving without a reservation versus an intervention of a reservation-only policy. So in our simulation, we made some assumptions about our customers' behaviors. So customers arriving alone, customer _1, they'll be seated at a bar. And then customers arriving in pairs, they'll be seated at a two-person table. Because of limitations of our simulation, customers will be seated here even if some room exists at either the bar or four-person table, which is actually not that uncommon of a situation. Yes, I have two seats at the bar. No, we want to wait for a table. And then customers arriving as a party of four will be seated at a table for four people. One thing that we weren't able to accomplish here is that I have seen at a restaurant they'll put two-person tables together for a four-person table. It's not common, so we're gonna skip that part of the simulation, but it is a limitation that further research could go to optimize. So assumptions, we're going to assume a restaurant with 15 tables, 10 tables for groups of four, 5 tables for pairs, and then 5 seats at the bar. We're going to be modeling just a weekday dinner rush. So that's a 4-hour span from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then we're going to add 100 customers for an extra hour in our model for 500 customers in a total day. This is the difference between there was a case study for restaurant queuing model where they had 400 customers, but we added seats assuming a larger restaurant. So the distribution of arriving guests is 60 groups of people, 35%, 50 groups of 2, 30%, and then 60 individuals, 35%. So we have a 35% for both individuals and groups of 4, and then a 30% for groups of 2. We're going to also assume at the status quo model that people begin to balk at 36 people, which is in the literature, and we extrapolate that to 12 groups of any kind of combination. A more robust model may accommodate the differences in group sizes and adjust accordingly. So based on that arrival, we have 2.08 customers per minute, and then 17.31 minutes for wait time in the queue. Our dining times will follow the distribution provided in the case model, which follow a uniform distribution of 40 to 45 minutes. Therefore, the average number of people in the restaurant is 93.6 customers, and our utilization rate is 2.10 customers per minute. The cost per person is also based on the restaurant revenue management model. It's uniform distribution between $42 and $74 per person. And then our intervention model, because we have a higher per person revenue, is actually be slightly higher at $47 to $79 for reservation guests. Since the per group dollar value includes tip, we're going to presume that it translates to a wage of $15 for each staff member. This was an anecdotal assumption. Further research would be needed to identify what a true wage per person would be. Some restaurants, waiters get the tips, and then other restaurants, the tips are pooled and then divided amongst the entire staff. So this is the visualization of our model. You can see that we have basically the booths for four persons, two table top, and then a bar with seating. We also show our wait staff is going and taking orders, running to the kitchen, and then taking orders from the kitchen back out to the staff. So our workflow here, guests enter the host, which is going to be our source. They're either seated if a table is available immediately, or they're sent to the queue waiting area. In our intervention model, the queue waiting area is essentially non-existent. And then from there, as we said, the wait staff getting orders and then taking them back. So our initial simulation results for the 3-hour period was 16 minutes, and we were hoping to actually model 15-minute wait. In our intervention model, the wait time should be at most 5 minutes, and that's based on the literature. So the entire time that a guest spends in the restaurant is approximately 45 minutes based on literature, and the average time of 53 to 47 minutes is within the acceptable range for our simulation. But a main concern from the initial simulation is our four-person group waits nearly no time at all, which again goes against even just anecdotal, seeing a four-person group usually takes longer than even a two-person. And then people at the bar are waiting 20 minutes, and our group of two is waiting nearly 30 minutes. So we wouldn't expect people to be able to go to the bar quicker than those that are going for a person. So to achieve a more balanced wait time, we adjusted the numbers for a 5 4-person table, 5 2-person table, and then 5 1-person spots at the bar. The restaurant is at full capacity with 35 people. Still a large restaurant. So with our wait times more balanced, under the total, we initially considered 112 people, which is too low. So we again adjusted to a 6 4-person table, 7 2-person table, and 8 1-person spots at the bar. So the restaurant's full capacity at 46 people. And we were only able to get 211 customers for the entire time period. Since our primary objective is just to understand the wait times, we're going to forego the validation of the customer counts and continue with the table setup since we see a more normalized wait time. And anecdotally, it fits because I've been offered to sit at a bar quickly if I'm waiting for others in my party. But if I wanted to wait for the table, it actually takes more time. So our status quo model, we see the number of groups that balked is 5.3. Our revenue is on average 16,000. And then in our intervention model, we assumed a 9% to 12% cancellation no-shows, which is again based in literature. So the total waiting time, 0, nobody's waiting. As soon as they come in, they're seated. And then our revenue we see is slightly higher, which fits in with our assumptions that those that are making reservations are paying a little higher. So we did a statistical comparison of a t-test of means for the status quo and intervention model. We actually see that the p-value exceeds our 0.05. So we can conclude that the means are actually they're significantly similar, although our p-value is approaching significance. So surprisingly, the reservation model generated the highest revenue, which is our forecast of interest. I would have assumed with the cancellations there would be less revenue overall, but it does fit in with the higher average per customer. But But based through research, there are many things to consider first before implementing such a strategy. If the reservation cancel rate is less than a uniform distribution of 9% to 12%, say it's a very fancy restaurant or very trendy and people don't cancel, you might actually see a difference in the revenue. But the revenue system requires significantly more coordination. You have calls and follow-ups, managing tables. You might actually have to add staff support. So that could impact your overall revenue. And then if your staff isn't able to coordinate it effectively, it might not be appropriate under any circumstance, even if there's slightly higher revenue. Forgotten cancellations are extremely bad. You'll see bad reviews. They can come back to sort of be problematic, and in that case, you'll see your revenue dip even if the simulation shows it being higher. So if our sole objective is increased revenue, and all else is the same, then we would recommend a walk-in strategy because it requires less effort and they achieve similar revenue outcomes. And I want to thank you for your time.